I think everybody is creative. We all have ideas. We just often are taught, or we don't have the self-confidence to believe that we really have anything of value coming out of our minds, which is not true. I try never to think about what someone else will think about it. One, because I don't give a damn. I'm always looking or hoping for a charismatic element that grabs me emotionally, and then I can use that, which that doesn't always happen. Not all improvisations are successful, but for example, if I was going to go something like that, a theme, which is maybe not that intriguing to me, but if immediately it speaks of E minor, which is such a guitar-friendly key, so we have that 6, something like that. I would immediately be thinking of what if I started maybe, just like moving it around, like, so I did moving up kind of chromatically with the bass, or maybe like, something like that, maybe going suddenly to major. I would start sketching that theme in as many ways as I could think of, just playing around with it, maybe really getting out there sometimes, even if I know I won't use that, just to move me in new directions so I don't get too safe all the time. But so you start thinking of a theme like that, then you move it up, you know. So just moving around, you know. So just that's very Bach-like, but moving, using that first 6 and expanding it. You know, it's like, so just, I would start to look, I'm just like fiddling about, looking for something. But this is sort of the process I would do, just seeing what grabs me, what doesn't work. Maybe 90% doesn't work. I'm not going to use that. I'm not going to use that. But then you go, oh, that's interesting. And begin to assemble maybe an A section. Then maybe you get an idea for where the B section will go, maybe not. So it's different every time. And then maybe I do all of that work, spend like 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and I go, I don't use any of that. That was fun, though. That's very common, But just kind of doing it with a light heart and an open mind in terms of letting something charismatic and not judging it in the moment. I try never to think about what someone else will think about it. One, because I don't give a damn. And the second thing is you can't. Because, when you create things, you're going to have a whole lot of opinions about what you've created. And if you pay attention to those, that is a good way to kill your creativity. So you can only create for yourself. I'm of the firm opinion you can only create for yourself. You offer something honest and authentic, and it's up to the listener to decide if it's meaningful for them. If not, fine, go on your own way. If it imparts something of value to them, that's wonderful. But if it doesn't, that's also wonderful. So it's out of my hands at that point. So a lot of people, you get negative things, you get positive things. So I put them all in the same category. Of course, everyone prefers positive, but you can't pay attention to the negativity. You will experience it when you're younger, as you're emerging into any creative field. You will have to confront negativity, and we have to in life on every level. But at some point, you have to make peace with it. I've watched it change some artists. It will change the way they create because they listen too much to this negative criticism. Really a bad idea. You can't change your nature. The reasons you're creating that probably any critic doesn't even understand. In my 20s when I got got some really good reviews, I remember my first really bad negative review, which is completely uncalled for. Turns out the reviewer actually was a frustrated composer. Nobody liked his music, and he was not, I won't say his name, but he would typically, if a concert had 18 people in it and the hall was completely empty, but they played really kind of bizarre music, he would laud it and say that the place was packed. It's not very ethical. I had a concert that had like 1,100 people completely full, yet he found things to criticize a little bit too hurtful. And I took it to heart at the time. I had to, because I was thinking, wow, I played really great. The audience loved it. I got good reviews elsewhere, but he was very negative and he had some authority at the time. That was the one moment I had to really kind of work through emotionally how I was going to deal with negative reviews, because you know they're going to come. Everybody had them. The greatest artists had them. You know, you've seen these probably reviews about Beethoven by some guy in his lifetime reviewing and said he'll never amount to anything. He's terrible. He's awful. He's talentless. You know, hilarious when you think about it today. So these things will happen, and you got to find a way to deal with it. That's all. And it's not always easy, but I just think it's essential that you maintain your own path as a warrior with fierceness about what you want to do, and not let anybody influence you to do something than what you want to do. So when someone asks me, how do I improvise? I have no ideas, that kind of thing. I've done this many times. In fact, I wrote 3 books on jazz improvisation for Alfred. It's now in one volume. They combined all of them. It was Jazz for Classical Cats. Now it's called something else for the compendium. And I had to really think it through for that. That was a difficult book to write. And in teaching in my own site, Andrew's Den, I talk a lot about this. And I've done master classes and workshops over the years. So what I begin with is awareness, because I think everybody is creative. We all have ideas. We just often are taught, or we don't have the self-confidence to believe that we really have anything of value coming out of our minds, which is not true. It doesn't mean everything coming out of your mind is golden, but it does mean that you probably do have ideas popping up all the time, and you can sift through them in a non-judgmental way at first to allow them to appear. Because if you judge them right at the start, it's like you're just chopping them off at the root before they even can begin. So you do need some discrimination later about what's good and what's not. But at first you allow them to exist and know that you can create them. So awareness is key. In the sense that you're open-minded. And so often, yes, I will, just maybe do a drone and then play notes, get them to just to play notes, get to know what that sounds like, what a root really sounds like. For example, a G with no third in it, so you can do anything, any note. And because most people are surprisingly unaware of the qualities of intervals, like what a root sounds like when you have this note there, that's very cold, it's the root, it's home, but and then when you have the fifth, that's a very different sound. So if you go really deep where each note in relation to a key center is a different color, which it really is, and get to know them better sort of as friends, that allows ideas to emerge that have a more personal meaning, and you can also begin to tell what note you're hearing. If you really know what a fifth against a background chord sounds like, then you have a much better chance of hearing an idea, playing it on the guitar, or writing it down, or working with it. So awareness, the first thing is just getting your ears open and being able to approach creativity that way. That's the first and foremost. It's not about what scales you know or chords you know. It's not about that.